Right, this is 13 KEIN Montana's Comedy Network. My name's Christopher Smith, and we have a special edition of our 13 KEIN News interviews. Today, we're going to interview from Tactical Civics, Bart Crabtree and Randy Pinocci. What is Tactical Civics, guys? And Bart, can you give us a rundown?
Yeah, certainly. Tactical Civics, first and foremost, we are unashamedly a Christian organization. Our mission's first allegiance is to Jesus Christ. And as you all know, that in the Constitution, it stipulates that we the people, it's all about we the people. We authorize only ourselves to enforce the Constitution. So Tactical Civics is actually a four-phase full spectrum plan to take our country back from DC organized crime. And we do that starting at all 3,141 counties across America. And here in Montana, we actually have about half of the counties. We have a presence in about half of the counties across Montana. So we need to honor our republic. A democracy does not keep our government in check. A republic does. This is just basic civics. And TC is about taking lawful jurisdiction back, from our government. So it's just an exciting program. And the four phases basically are grand jury. We are pushing that in Montana right now. A lot of people are not familiar with grand jury. Constitutional militia. People flip out about that word militia. Many times when we're at open houses, I will ask people, do you trust the media? And of course, they get kind of a laugh and everybody's like, no, boo, hiss, we don't trust the media. And then I ask them a pointed question. Okay, where did you learn about the word militia from? And there's a big pause. People start thinking about this, okay? Militia is not at all what people think it is, okay? Militia is a group of citizens in a community coming together. So, and I'm really amazed at the level of anger that we see from people today because we can help this. We can change things. That's what Tactical Civics is all about. We hear people complain all the time that they've had their rights violated, that the government is doing something illegal. There seems to be a whole lot of complaining, but not a whole lot of action. But that's what Tactical Civics is about. We're actually doing something. We all need to comprehend the stipulations set out by we the people in our U.S. Constitution. The most basic facts of civics that these United States of Americas are a republic, a form of government guaranteed by we the people to each state in Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution. So a few of the other things that we're doing at Tactical Civics is the ratification of our first right. A lot of people don't realize that what we know as our current First and Second Amendment were actually proposed as the Third and Fourth Amendment to our United States Constitution, which is, of course, freedom of speech, freedom of press, and the right to bear arms. But I also ask people, do you believe in the Second Amendment? Of course, a lot of the people that come to our meetings about Tactical Civics, they're very constitutional minded. They're gun rights, obviously. And they all say, yeah, I believe in the Second Amendment. And I say, okay, well, what about the first part of the Second Amendment? Everybody touts your rights to have guns, things like that. But what is the first part of the Second Amendment? It's the right to a militia, to a free state. So people need to get educated on what militia truly is. Militia is not about, groups of people around a state that are wearing camouflage, all about guns, all about shooting up trees up in the mountains, wearing camouflage, eating raw rabbits. That is not what militia is, but yet people have that perception of militia. But this is true constitutional militia that we are educating the public on. It's kind of interesting. We went down to Jefferson City about a month and a half ago, and we actually had a reporter that showed up there we talked about tactical civics, all the issues that we're doing, from grand jury to constitutional militia to our first right to the Bring Congress Home Act, all this stuff that tactical civics is doing to educate the public on how to take our country back. Okay. So what are the headlines the next week in the Jefferson City newspaper? I forget what the name of it is now, but it says, militia activists hold meeting in Jefferson City.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh,
So
interesting.
why does he hit on militia? Okay.
Yeah.
Because he wants the readership. Okay. But he didn't even explain what true constitutional militia is in that article. And he didn't even
Right.
really talk about our first right or grand jury or that. My point is, why didn't he headline that article to say grand jury activists hold
Right.
meeting in Jefferson City, or our first right activists hold meeting in Jefferson City? And why didn't he say the whole purpose of that meeting was to educate the public on what these things are? So
Right.
yeah. In
Right. So,
tactical civics, typically, I mean, really, civic or tactical means a prudent plan of action designed to gain a desired end. That's the definition of tactical. People think it's military or something.
yeah.
Civics is simply the study of rights, privileges, powers, and duties of citizens. So tactical civics is a trademark, actually a trademark name. It's a new life. It's really a new way of life for self-governing America. TC is process-based, not issue-based. We don't do politics. It's not an event. It's not an election cycle. It's not politics.
Right.
It's really detoxing from what we're all involved in right now. So
Right.
that
Awesome.
kind of highlights what it is.
Awesome. I appreciate that short rundown, Bart. So, what is your position and how did you get involved?
Well, in 2018 or 2019, I was one of the co-founders of the Montana Citizens Council on Judicial Accountability. Actually, when we first started it was called the Montana State Council on Judicial Accountability, but we soon realized that a lot of people thought we were a government agency, which we're not. Okay. So we amended our name to Montana Citizens from Montana State. Okay. And we started actively pursuing legislation in some areas that need to be done. Our judiciary is broken. It's not only nationwide, but it's in Montana as well. Okay. It is corrupt. There's just no way around it. So we started bringing some bills that are affecting commissions like the Judicial Standards Commission. We started bringing the grand jury bill in 2023. We tried to get a legislative referendum pushed through the House Judiciary, but and I really thought it was going to come out of there to go to the House floor on a 13-6 vote, but it ended up getting killed on a 16-3 vote.
Yeah.
So as a result of that, we had to go to Plan B, which is a citizens initiative, a CI 125. You guys are familiar. We've been pushing that across the state of Montana, and it's a heavy lift. I mean, it takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of manpower to get 70,000 signatures on a citizens initiative to get it on the ballot. Okay, but
Yeah.
we need to bring grand jury back to Montana. We do have it. It's in our constitution, our laws, but the problem is the only way we can impanel a grand jury is through the authorization of a district court judge, which is
Yeah.
completely unconstitutional.
Yeah. So, Randy, what is your position with Tactical Civics and how did you get involved?
Well, let's turn the clock back to 2015. We had a really important legislative session. Some names that served was Austin Knudsen, who's now our Attorney General. Austin served in the legislature with me, and I supported him to be Speaker of the House. Another famous name of that time was Al Olszewski from the Kalispell area, and we all fought the Water Compact together, which the state constitution is something you swear an oath to office to. And there are really two constitutions when you swear your oath, to uphold the state constitution and the US Constitution. And we fought the Water Compact, and the state constitution says the water belongs to the state for the use of its people. So I told the courts that you simply drop the hammer and say it's unconstitutional and we don't need a water compact, okay? Well, as we all know, the water compact passed and it was, I think, very unethical because it stood against our state constitution. Anyone who voted to pass the water compact broke their oath of office. So you rely on the courts to do what's right. But what's happening across Montana is we're witnessing courts make law from the bench. The legislature sets law. The courts are to adhere to the law when they render a decision in their courtroom. For instance, we passed some laws on voter integrity. You have to have a photo ID, and a judge will say, okay, we're not going to follow that and rule against it. The judge didn't follow the Montana law. He made law from the bench. A judge that does this in Montana quite often is Judge Moses out of Billings, Montana. He's one of the worst offenders. And folks, if you want some more proof that this is a real problem, Austin Knudsen, who is our Attorney General, as he speaks around Montana, he says this is the #1 issue facing Montana today. Our courts do not follow Montana law. They do not follow what they're expected to do. So we have to take some action to straighten our courts out. About 20 years ago, Travis Butcher had a ballot initiative that basically said if a judge made law from the bench, he could be removed. And I really think that we need to try and set that benchmark again. And this is a serious problem in Montana. So I'm in full support of tactical civics and grand juries because we have a tremendous problem with our courts.
All right. So speaking more on courts and grand juries, I hear, well, obviously in this conversation that one of the primary focuses of Tactical Civics is getting this grand jury, deal passed. So, Bart, can you kind of chime in on the efforts there and what Tactical Civics is trying to do with this?
Yeah, sure. Let me just do a little background. First, a lot of people don't even know what grand jury is. Okay. When most people hear the word jury, of course, they think of a jury trial like, what Trump's going through, just went through, in the local county level, the jury. In Montana, we have 3 types of juries. And the first one listed, and I don't think it's by coincidence, is grand jury. The second one is what is known as a PETA jury. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And that's just a regular 12-member or 6-member jury in a trial. By the way, a jury in a trial, that is a militia. That is a constitutional militia. Okay, the third type of a jury in Montana is a jury of inquest. Most people know about that, like if there's a police shooting or something like that, okay? A grand jury in Montana consists of 11 people, and it takes 8 of those 11 people to indict somebody. They don't actually try anybody or anything. That's up to the courts. The only thing that the grand jury does, and by the way, you and I have a right to a grand jury, okay? But all that a grand jury does is investigates. They are impaneled, and then they meet in private, and they look at all of the information, and that's where the constitutional militia at the county level comes in to help. The constitutional militia can deliver subpoenas, bring in witnesses, things like that for the grand jury. So the constitutional militia and the grand jury actually work together. Okay, this is just remedial civics, you guys. A lot of people don't know this. So once the grand jury has looked at all the information, they've talked to witnesses, et cetera, subpoenaed computers or whatever, what have you, they make a decision whether to indict that person or persons that would require the court, the local district court, to bring charges against that person or persons. The court would not have any choice, okay? So then from there, the court and the prosecutor would be obligated to try those people. That's what a grand jury does. basically, we all know that like the police investigate a possible crime, the sheriff's department does, so can the grand jury. Instead of the police or sheriff's departments doing the investigating, it's we the people doing the investigating. And there's quite a problem that's been brewing for quite a few years now here in Montana. I mean, it can literally take one police officer or sheriff's deputy to submit well, I'll just say it, like a phony report to the county attorney's office, who would then turn around and submit a request for or information for leave with the district court judge, and judges typically just rubber stamp that stuff. Okay. A lot of times it's not really a true investigation like a grand jury does. But the big thing is, with so much of the corruption in our government today at the national level and the state level, we the people should have the right to bring a grand jury to investigate. Even if there's no crime being committed, we the people have the right to have the assurance that nothing is happening. Okay.
Right.
So that's all a grand jury does. So
can a grand jury be used to impanel, like, say, or to actually bring? I'm trying to word this. Can a grand jury be used, say for instance, the sheriff of a county breaks a law, right? Could a grand jury be used to try said sheriff, whereas maybe a court may not be willing to?
not try. All a grand jury does is investigates and indicts. They don't actually try. That's the job of the court system, to actually,
Okay.
try them in a jury trial. So, but yes, a grand jury only investigates possible felonies is what they would investigate. But yes, if a sheriff's deputy or some government employee is breaking the law and it's being swept under the rug because of the buddy system or something like that, we the people should have the right to be able to impanel the grand jury. But right now, our hands are tied because our courts control it, which is completely unconstitutional.
Right.
As I said earlier, our Montana Constitution was created again back in the early 70s, where it established that we do have a grand jury here in Montana. Okay, now you fast forward to 1992, there was a ruling in the U.S. Supreme Court called U.S. v. Williams. And it was Judge Antonin Scalia wrote the majority opinion on that. And he stated that a grand jury is like a fourth branch of government for the people, and the other three branches of government should not be controlling it. Yet that's what has been happening in Montana for the last 50 years. So I beg the question, like I said earlier, why has our government here in Montana not done something about that with our grand jury? It's been sitting dormant. Okay, in the last 30 years, we have, about 33 years, we have not had a grand jury impaneled in Montana. And that's a very informal survey that we did at Montana Citizens Council on Judicial Accountability. It's never used. They don't want to use it.
I don't want to use it. Yeah, that's interesting to hear. So ideally, Tactical Civics would like a citizens initiative to be signed and passed so that it could be included in, like, say, the next election to vote.
Yeah, the CI 125 that we brought, we're trying to get over, well, about 70,000 signatures on it. We're not going to make it this time around, but we're going to continue working toward this. But what we are trying to do is bring it to all the electors in the election process this coming November. And what it would do would allow not only a district court judge to authorize the impaneling of a grand jury, but if that judge refused to, then you or I could go out in our county, say Cascade County or Prairie County, wherever, and get signatures from 0.5% of the electors in that county, and that would force the judge to impanel a grand jury. So it's putting some of the control back with the people to impanel the grand jury. Oh, and by the way, like in Prairie County, there's maybe 1,000 people. So the initiative, excuse me, actually said it would take a minimum of 100 plus 0.5%, because obviously you can't have 0.5% of the electors in Prairie County, 2 people or 3 people. signing a petition to impanel a
Yeah,
grand jury, you know.
there'd be a lot of grand juries happening there.
Yes,
Yeah.
it would.
Yeah. So let's move on a little bit from grand jury. We've kind of hit that one on the head. With regards to tactical civics, let's talk a little bit more about judges. So with tactical civics, how do judges, or how can a person like me gauge the politics of a judge, for instance? And with regards to tactical civics, why is that important? That's a question I get a lot.
Oh boy, I don't know. I think Rand will be better served to answer that one. But as we know that in the last few sessions, and maybe even when Rand was in the legislature, there were some bills brought that they were trying to implement that, where when a judge ran, they had to run as a Democrat, Republican, or Independent, and it's gotten shot down. I think the last one was in 2023 with Barry Usher. Senator Barry Usher brought that one. So I'm certain it's going to be brought again, but I strongly believe that it needs to be passed. You know, people need to know, the citizens need to know if a judge is like an extremely liberal judge or a conservative judge or what have you.
So Randy, do you want to chime in on that?
You know, we get that question a lot as elected officials. I get the phone call all the time. Who do I support as judge? The advice I have for the public is try to follow the money. When you see a judge that gets most of the money from the Democrat Party, they're going to be a liberal judge. And as we all know, the Democrats have been losing elections across the state. In Cascade County, they virtually hold no office. And across the state, we now have a super majority of Republicans. And folks, what's happening is the Democrat Party then reaches to the Democrat judges and asks them to break the rules. And that's exactly what we're seeing across the state. The Democrats have become very desperate, so they turn to the judges, which they got elected. And Austin Knudsen and I feel if we change the law that says if you're going to run for a judge position, you have to be Democrat or Republican, this will give a conservative state an opportunity to get rid of the liberal judges. By the way, as your public service commissioner, I am a judge, and the public service commissioners have to pick party affiliation. So I'm really the only judge in the state that has to pick a party affiliation. And there's something else that's interesting. The Public Service Commission judges have term limits. I can only be in office for 8 years, and I'm coming up to the end of my term. Why is it that other judges don't have to pick party affiliation or have term limits, but the Public Service Commission judges do? Folks, this government's your government. You get the government you deserve. You got to start asking these questions. And what I'm asking you to do is either all judges pick party affiliation and have term limits, or you take them away from your judges in the Public Service Commission. So I hope that shines a little light on what judges are about in Montana today.
Yeah. Absolutely does, Randy. And yeah, I agree. I mean, if you have to have term limits, why don't judges have term limits? I think that's been a huge issue even among my listeners. We hear that all the time as well. So just kind of moving on a little bit from judges, let's move on to militia. I've heard the term constitutional militia that quite a bit. And Bart, maybe you could tell us a little more about that, because I hear mixed feelings from the public, and yet my understanding is that you probably will want a constitutional militia, say country gets invaded or something happens even domestically, but maybe you could chime in on that.
Yeah, again, I talked a little bit about that earlier, how the media over the last 30 or 40 years have really spun that word militia. I mean, I don't know if you remember, Chris, but I'm sure that Randy does, and other listeners out there do. You go back to down in Jordan, Montana era about 30 or 40 years ago. And there's been other factions that popped up over the years, literally anti-government thugs. That's what they are. Okay. And the media has applied that word militia to those groups. So that's the perception that the public has about it out there. And this is what Tactical Civics is about. It's about when people come into Tactical Civics, they can actually learn remedial civics, okay? They can learn about what true militia is. There are no militia groups in the United States right now. There are none. That's a fact. Okay. The media has spun that word to the public and connected it to these armed private groups, anti-government thugs, like I said, paramilitary groups, nut jobs running around the woods, blah, blah, blah. Militia, true constitutional militia, is members of a community coming together to assist their government. Okay. We have the right to do that. That's what true militia really is. Okay. And it begs the question, the media has portrayed militia as anti-government people. Why would we be anti-government? The government belongs to we the people, right?
Right.
And constitutional militia is about a peaceful, lawful taking back of our government, is what true constitutional militia is. It's a small part of Tactical Civics chapters across Montana and the Republic. Like I said earlier, we have 3,141 counties across the United States. In Montana, we have 56. Tactical Civics has a presence in right at about a half of the counties in Montana. I'm not saying we all have chapters in that many counties, but we do have a presence there. Here in Montana, we're pushing 500 members right now across Montana. We've been crisscrossing the state, hosting open houses, showing people what Tactical Civics truly is, what constitutional militia is. And it's great to be on this program to get that word out, Chris. So
right. Yeah, and I'm certainly myself interested in Tactical Civics. I grew up in Missoula, and nobody ever told me what a militia was other than the crazy, scary groups that you see on TV, like Criminal Minds, where the FBI guys are going, oh, our unsub might be a member of the Montana militia. And it's like, what? That doesn't even seem right. But the way you describe it, it's just like all of our neighbors. And let's say our city were invaded, our neighbors could get together and actively defend ourselves. Like that just seems like a no-brainer. So
yeah.
let's move on a little bit. How does Tactical Civics address some of the things like with the police and police departments?
Well, we really don't get involved in that kind of stuff. Like I said a little earlier, our motto is we don't do politics at Tactical Civics. We're so focused on our mission to bring grand jury in, not back. Grand jury has always been there for we the people. We can't complain about how Americans fear the word militia or grand jury. We need to get to work educating them, and that's what we're intending to do. So
Okay.
we really don't focus on things that are going on with the police department or the sheriff's department or things like that. We're focused on restoring our constitutional rights as as the masters that we are. Those people in government are our servants. It's just a fact. They are the servants of we the people. So somehow that's gotten flipped on its head over the last 50 or 60 years to
Right.
where government thinks that they are the masters and we are the taxpayers. We are the servant. No, we are the masters. We are the Constitution, and they answer to us. And people need to relearn that.
Yeah, and that's been one of the big questions that I always get asked when I bring up Tactical Civics is, well, how does that work with like police and the police telling you this and that and and government? And I said, I don't know. So I figured I'd ask the question. So tonight you've kind of talked a lot about Tactical Civics. How can our government officials help support Tactical Civics?
Well, again, just educating our public officials like the legislators. And by the way, we are going to be, and we have been educating some of our legislators about like our first right. I touched on that briefly a little bit earlier. Back when our Constitution was formed and our Bill of Rights came out at the Constitutional Convention, there was the original First Amendment was that we should have one U.S. House representative for every 50,000 people. Okay. So fast forward to Montana right now, if that was actually had been ratified, which indeed it was, I'll get to that in a minute, Montana would actually have about 22 U.S. House representatives. I'm not talking about the Senate, I'm talking about the House. Okay. At that convention, George Washington only spoke on one issue, and that was our first right. Now, the Bill of Rights went out to the 12 or 13 states at that time, okay? And it was actually fully ratified because Connecticut, their House of Representatives passed or ratified our first right. It went to their Senate, they ratified it. But then the state of Connecticut, their House members, they wanted to retract their vote until they could get more information from Congress on that. But they couldn't do that. Their House rules did not allow that. Now, I know everybody's looking at me like I got three heads right now. Like, what's this guy talking about? I get that all the time. But the fact remains that Connecticut did ratify that, but they did not send the ratification back like the other states did back to Congress. They buried it, and it was found in their archives. Okay, now had Connecticut actually sent that back like they were supposed to have, you and I would actually have one U.S. House representative for every 50,000 people in our communities. It's pretty exciting stuff. So we're educating our Montana state legislators on this because we are going to be bringing a vote to have this ratified in what it's not going to happen in 2025. We're looking at probably 2027, 2029, somewhere in there. And we just need ratification from 27 more states to get this fully ratified to implement that. Now, at that time, and of course, this is a long-range plan, you know. So at that time, once we get that fully ratified, then we are going to enact the Bring Congress Home Act, where our U.S. House representatives are actually going to be working from home instead of going to Washington, D.C. What happens to a lot of them when they go to Washington, D.C.? They get corrupted. A lot of them. I'm not saying all of them do. So.
All right. Well, that's great. So, Randy, from your perspective, how can government officials, public service commissioner, lieutenant governors, maybe, governors, how can they help from your perspective?
That's a great question. In the past, I've worked with Judy Martz, the first female governor in the history of Montana. I worked a little bit with Governor Mark Roscoe. And one of the reasons I did is I'm the vice president of Montana Shooting Sports Association. And when we look at the Montana Constitution, it doesn't use the word militia, it uses the word home guard. So we take that from our state constitution. So when you ask a person, on average, how much law enforcement do we have in the state? Some people will say, well, we must have 25,000 people in law enforcement. We have 10,000 people in law enforcement. Montana on any given day only has about 1,000 people in law enforcement. The state is bigger than some countries. And if we were to have a natural disaster, law enforcement would simply be exhausted in a matter of minutes. So one of the meetings that Montana Shooting Sports Association had with some past governors is, if we were to recognize a home guard, we would like to assemble doctors, people with four-wheel drive trucks and four-wheel drive, clubs, anyone who has a private aircraft. We'd like them to sign up as volunteers. What are we trying to create here? Well, if we're looking for a child that's lost in the mountains, we would have a tremendous amount of resources. Tanner and I are running for governor and lieutenant governor, and I believe it would be quite easy to gather a list of home guard volunteers that would be assembled from all these different groups: firefighters, doctors, people that own aircraft, scuba divers, and I think they would enjoy being part of the Montana Home Guard. And then when we have a natural disaster, instead of relying on a very limited law enforcement community of 1,000, I could turn to 50,000 or maybe 100,000 volunteers. We could find that lost child much quicker. We've had some snowstorms in our past where snow was 20 feet deep. One time I went out sledding and the snowdrift was even with the roof of our house. And I could climb to the roof of the house, slide down the roof onto a drift. If you look to a snowstorm in Wyoming, it completely buried homes and power poles where you couldn't even see them. These type of storms are rare, but there is going to be another volcano. There is going to be another earthquake. Assembly of the Home Guard starts with the governor's office. Tanner and I are going to be very open to this. So I think that's a great example of what could be done and what should be done. And it is miles away from the Montana militia that's some sort of military group. What we need is a list of volunteers ready to act. Flooding happens somewhere in Montana quite often, where we need volunteers and volunteers quickly.
Well, I could certainly tell you that that's probably something that our communities would desperately need. And I don't think anybody on any side could argue that. Like the fact that, the Home Guard could be assembled quickly if a child goes missing, and the first 24 hours are crucial. So yeah, I think that's great. Bart, you were going to chime in?
No, I was just going to agree with Randy completely. That's exactly what constitutional militia members would do at the county level. They would assist and volunteer and things like that. But they're, their primary responsibility would be to back up the grand jury system that we, the people, should be able to use. And we're going to keep fighting for that. We're going to get it through one way or the other, so.
Well, this really does sound like something that we actually absolutely need to do. And it sounds like that Smith and Pinocci really have this one like on their list. And that, I mean, I can't think of another reason why I wouldn't want to definitely consider voting for these guys. Well, to be fair, I'm going to check the box. But let's move on here. I don't want to get political on the show so much. So where does Tactical Civics meetings take place, and how can people get involved?
Well, we have them across Montana, where we do have going chapters. We do have about 8 chapters, full-blown chapters across Montana. We're working on some of these other counties that have 2 or 3 or 4 members to try to get it up to, once they get 10 members or something like that. Then we create a chapter. We don't just get one person. Like we had a person in Dawson County join just last week. Obviously, we need to get more people there to create a chapter, okay? But typically, we allow that chapter to pretty much run their chapters, but typically they'll meet, like, for example, on the first Tuesday of the month, and then they'll have an open house on the third Tuesday of the month, where they invite the general public to actually come in and learn about what Tactical Civics is, like I did when I went down to Jefferson County. And then the reporter down there, militia activist group, blah, 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 So, and one of our members actually from from Jefferson County, he actually wrote a rebuttal letter to them. A very good one, very good one. So that's how the members meet, and they pretty much run their own show. But when people join Tactical Civics, then they have access to what we call the training center. I don't like calling it that, but that's where you come in to get educated. We have numerous books, one of them called The Great Reset. That's the basic book that new members, we have them read. And then we have Time to Start Over America, which is focused on constitutional militia. We have Grand Jury Awake, which is the basics on what grand jury is across this great republic. A deeper book on that called The People's Panel. It's been republished several times. It's been out for like 80 years. Grand jury has a great history, and it's really a shame that our government has stripped we the people of our grand jury system. I mean, it's the People's Panel, like that book title says.
Yeah.
It's about we the people doing, and it's taken this country back, is what it is. It's about popular constitutionalism, constitutional enforcement, and enforcing our laws, both at the county, the state, and the federal level. So.
Yeah, so to learn more about Tactical Civics, of course, we're going to get some information for our, the post on our website and YouTube, and of course, anything we can put out over the air for you. But do you have some quick contact information for anybody who's interested?
Oh yeah, they can just go to tacticalcivics.com. And there's some short videos on there they can watch, and to really get involved, or even just to come in and look around in the training center, they can just join. It's a whopping $5 a month. I don't know if people can afford that, but it doesn't cost much. Like I said, when I joined about 3 years ago, as soon as I looked at that they were educating people on grand jury and our first right, I was in right away. And unfortunately, about 6 months after I joined, our state coordinator, Steve Wagner, down in Whitehall, he was getting Montana off the ground, and he had a really bad stroke. So I just kind of stepped in and started helping out, and it just grew from there. And now I'm the regional coordinator for Montana, Wyoming, and North and South Dakota. And our state coordinator is Genevieve Schmidt. She's down in Park County. And Park County, as small as it is, we have about 50, almost 60 members down there. Bozeman, Gallatin County, we really focused on that. We have almost 100 members now down in Gallatin County. Madison County, this is an exciting thing. Our goal is to get 0.5% of the population in every county as a Tactical Civics member. So I started going down to Madison County. We only had about 2 members down there about 10 months ago. We had a series of open houses down there. We now have over 50 members down there. Madison County, Montana was the first county to get to that 0.5% across the entire United States. So it was pretty exciting. Beaverhead County, we're working strong in that county. Lewis and Clark County is coming along really well. So it's very exciting. Really good people, really good people.
Very, very exciting. So is there anything you'd like to touch on tonight that we haven't already touched on during this program?
Well, I don't think so. I think I kind of hit on everything.
Awesome. And Randy, how about you?
Well, I'm an elected official who's a member of Tactical Civics, and I'm encouraging everyone to at least take the class. And if Tanner and I are elected, I'm going to start assembling a home guard. Keep in mind, forest fires and grass fires are a huge issue. And sometimes the fire season is so bad, we're bringing in volunteers from all over the country. And I think that we could really come up with thousands of people within our own state who would love to have the training to battle fires and other natural disasters. So I think this is a wonderful resource to tap in on, the resource of Montana's very own people. And why a governor has shied away from it in the past is just a lack of common sense. There are people that want to be part of something. And I can't pay them, but in a natural disaster, I'm sure we could assemble the money to cover fuel costs or maybe hotel or food expenses in the natural disaster for my people that are signed up. I have 89,000 veterans. Some of those veterans are trained firefighters or medics or pilots or scuba divers. You keep in mind, when we have someone lost in a river or lake, it can be a couple of days before we get a diving team out there. I could have divers assembled in most every county that could be ready to go in a couple hours. Folks, this is just common sense. And Tanner and I are going to be focused on this if we win this election. And I can't stress enough for everyone to vote in the June 4th primary, which is coming up in just a couple of days. Especially for those of you that don't plan on voting in the primary at all. This government's your government. You get the government you deserve. Folks, get involved. Make sure you vote June 4th for Tanner and Pinocci so we can get this project going.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I understand that sometimes people don't vote in the primary, and I have seen elections where it literally came down to one vote. And so, of course, not getting political here, I urge everybody out there to vote, no matter your political affiliation. As far as this primary, I think it's just a Republican primary. So, hey, you guys would be great. I know you've got my vote.
Well, thank you.
Education is the people need to get educated on their like I said, this is a third remedial civics. People need to just learn. And that's what Tactical Civics is about. It's about educating the public on what your rights are, your right to a grand jury, your right to a constitutional militia, et cetera, et cetera. And when they join, they also have access to Zooms. We have Zooms every day of the week. Members can join in and just listen as we go through the Great Reset chapter by chapter, or the Grand Jury Awake chapter by chapter. Once you're a member, you can download the books for free off there, or you can just order them from Amazon. So education is the key. People need to start learning. They got to quit griping and pounding the keyboards and, complaining. They need to take action. And the only way to do that is start to learn this stuff. It's not complicated. It's not rocket science, people. You can do it. And we appreciate Randy and Tanner for what, their participation in this and their support of this. This is really what it's about. This is about our Constitution, people.
It's about taking it back.
Absolutely.
It's about taking it back. That's right,
Yeah.
buddy.
I heard you mention something just now, really quick. It was on the tip of my tongue too. The Great Reset. What's that about?
No, the Great Reset, WE.
What's the Great Reset about?
Well, you'll have to join Tactical Civics and get the book.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, I can get you a
I like
copy
books.
of it. It's about the basic civics. It touches on grand jury a little bit, not really in depth. It talks about constitutional militia, our first right. It's got a lot of appendixes in the back of it. The sample county ordinances. By the way, once we have enough members in a county, we're going to go to the county commissioners, put it on their agenda, and we're going to demand that we pass a county ordinance that is recognizing grand jury and constitutional militia. So it will actually be on the county website, so people can actually go there and learn about what this stuff really is. And by the way, they could also sign up for grand jury service. I think there would be a lot of people that would sign up for grand jury service in Cascade County if they had the opportunity to do it.
So
I guarantee it.
Instead of like how right now they don't want to sign up for regular jury service, they kind of run away from it. And regular jury service is just you sit there, it's something the prosecutor wants, but grand jury is literally the power for the people. So I could totally see that being a thing. And while we've kind of been talking here a little bit about these things, I've also, I had another question just kind of pop up real quick here.
Sure.
Could the constitutional militia, the home guard, be used for, like, say, school protection? I hear all the time that the officers are really understaffed here. So is that a thing?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And there's so many things I left out. In an energy crisis, for instance, and as your public service commissioner, there are times where we have to have a controlled brownout, where we simply don't have enough electricity, and somewhere in the country, power's turned off. Usually in the western part of the United States, California is well known to have brownouts, and we could have a contingency plan to deal with that, which we have. And let's talk about wintertime when somebody's lost. The snowmobile clubs, right? There's so much to talk about. I don't have enough time to cover it all. But we can quickly see that the value in this is tremendous.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a tremendous value. And, I hear all the time, oh, there's not enough people for this. We need more volunteers for that. The city's constantly asking for volunteers for groups and things. And I bet you anything that the same members that are part of that home guard would probably volunteer for these things. So that sounds like a real big win for all of us. And I can't see where we wouldn't want this. All right, well, we're hitting about 48 minutes, and we're kind of running out of time here today. So, is there any last words either of you two have before we end the program?
Well, thanks for having me, and I encourage everybody to vote the June 4th primary, which is just around the corner. So,
and Bart?
Well, I would encourage people out there across Montana, or your listening audience, your viewing audience, to seriously consider going and taking a look at Tactical Civics. Like I said, they can join and start learning about it. You can just pay the $5 a month or $50 a year. If they just want to look and they're curious about it and want to start learning, they can just do I call it the tire kicking method. Just join, pay $5 a month and start learning this stuff for a couple, 3 months. And I guarantee you, once you start learning, your smile on your face is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, because you're going to start learning the truth about taking this country back. It's very exciting. So we got a great group of people that head up the organization. Robert Drake, he's down in Georgia. He's the CEO. David Zuniga, he's actually one of the co-founders. He's down in Boerne, Texas. Brad Boardman, he's over in Washington State. All just super great people. So yeah, I just want to encourage anybody and everybody to come on board with us. It's exciting. Let's take this country back, people. This is how we do it.
Nice. It definitely sounds like a plan. Well, this is 13 KEIN, Montana's Comedy Network, and you're listening to 13 KEIN News. And with that, we are going to cut off. But first, I want to thank Bart and I want to thank Randy for being here tonight. I also want to send a special shout out to Tanner. I know he couldn't be here on the program, but it's just a special shout out. I understand you two are really behind Tactical Civics, and I can see why. There's nothing but bonuses and benefits for it. And to my listeners out there who may be wondering what they can do to get involved, check out Tactical Civics. $5. What does the city call it? A cup of coffee? Well, okay. I mean, if you don't have that cup of coffee, great. Just check out the website and see what you think. And I know Tactical Civics does hold regular events. Check out one of those and see if it's your cup of tea or cup of coffee. And if you love it, get involved. So with that, everybody, I'll go ahead and we'll cut back to our regularly scheduled program. And this is 13 KEIN. Have a great evening.
Thank you, gentlemen.